Hello and welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this webinar. The title of the event today is Strategic Mainframe Modernization, the Best Path Forward. This event is brought to you in partnership with Micro Focus and Capgemini. Thank you so much for joining the event today. This is going to be a really cool panel discussion here. We've got experts from Micro Focus and Capgemini lined up to chat with you today. So it's going to be a great event. Before we get started, just a few things that you should know about the topic today. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. As always here at Actual Tech Media, we want these events to be educational. We're all former IT professionals ourselves. We know how tough it can be in the world of enterprise IT, and so we want to help to solve your technology challenges. In fact, we encourage your questions there in the questions box, and we'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation today, so keep those questions coming. We also have a Best Questions prize, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Before we cover that, you should know that there is a link there to Microfocus, Capgemini in the Handouts tab if you'd like more information on the solution that you'll be learning about today on the event. And then finally, we have a Amazon $300 gift card door prize that we'll be giving away on the live presentation today. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms can be found in the Handouts tab as well. And as I mentioned, we do have a $50 Amazon gift card best prize as well that we will contact the winner of after the presentation today. You also must meet, of course, the same prize terms and conditions. So without any further ado, I'm excited now to introduce you to today's expert speakers. Welcome Mr. Stuart McGill, Chief Technology Officer at Microfocus, Mr. Dinakar Selwyn, Global Head for Legacy Technologies and Revitalization at Capgemini, and Vineet Jha, Senior Director for Legacy Modernization, also at Capgemini. A great lineup of presenters. I'm excited now to bring on our first presenter. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to quickly do a poll for everyone out there in the audience. The poll question on your screen is, what are the challenges that are preventing you from modernizing your mainframe systems? And this is a multi-select question, so feel free to select more than one answer to this. You might have a number of challenges. I know in the world of IT, there's always rarely is there just one challenge. So we appreciate your feedback there on the poll. And I will share the results of this here with you in just a moment. If you haven't answered one of these poll questions before, you do it right there in the slides window. And I see a number of responses already coming in, so thank you so much for those. Let me give this just a few more seconds. All right, thank you everyone who responded to the poll. Let me share the results with you and also bring on our first presenter. Welcome, Dinakar. I want to get your feedback on the results here. I see, it looks like 71% said cost, investment in technology skills, infrastructure is really their number one challenge, followed by security, and then risk of operational failures. What's your take?
I think they simplified my work because, yes, actually, whatever they talked about, whatever the stack ranked, what they made, that's the exact thing which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. So, modernization, legacy modernization is not the new buzzword. In the past 21 years, I'm in this area, born and brought up in the mainframe modernization, having around 18 years of relationship with Micro Focus, doing many migrations and modernization. I'm doing it in my career. But the focus areas might have changed a bit. When I started my career, it was re-engineering. That time I was leading re-engineering center of excellence. Then it became migration. Then it became modernization. Today it is becoming digital transformation. How this era has been changed, the drivers and the outcomes, that expectations also have been changed. Even though the expectation has been changed, But the underlying 4 or 5 basic drivers, I think you already talked about or you already mentioned. Cost is the major one. Security is the second largest thing. And the third one is how I can get that same agility and availability on the system. So these are the various things which CIOs are thinking about. But at the same time, if you look at North American CIOs' top 3 priorities for the last 5 years, it would be legacy modernization would one among them. But while they are trying to do this kind of modernization, they always have, maybe we exactly classified cost and security, but little bit modernize a little bit the words like, hey, I have lots of risks if I do it. My application is completely robust. So it started from the size, this started from the cost, and it will end up at the emotional attachment also. People will always say, oh, I developed the system for so long, it cannot be modernized. It's the most complex one in the world, so we should not touch this. So all those are becoming the fear factors. But we need to look at where I can reduce the cost, where I should bring in elasticity, because elasticity is the new normal in this last 2-3 years when cloud becomes a center stage. So mainframe also should, because people will say mainframe is also a part of cloud. I'm using pay-per-use model, but how will I experience that elasticity? How will I bring in my user satisfaction? All those things will lead to the modernization as well as the digital transformation. So if you look at the modernization and the change, or the word moved from modernization to digital transformation, because there are, it's a large systems which are completely core, and the cost of modernization is huge. Modernization should not be looked at from the technology angle, it should be looked at from the functional angle, from the business process driven angle. So if you look at the financial systems, there are something are core, something are non-core, something are core which can be completely batch mode, something should be completely digitally operated. Some of the things I need to ensure that the RPA should be part of that. Likewise, all these pieces will take it into secure the core in such a way, but ensure the digital is also achieved. So it's a kind of two-pronged approach. CIOs will need to save the cost, OPEX, at the same time invest on digital. That's how the whole modernization will lead to digital. I believe the next speaker, Vinith, will take you through how we are strategizing this whole journey. Welcome, Vinith.
Thanks, Dinakar. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's call. Hi, my name is Vineet. I'm part of Legacy Modernization Practice Lead for North America. While Dinakar covered, right, he addressed the need and focus of application transformation, modernization, and he clarified what modernization means in today's world. It's all aligned with the digital transformation journey to cloud, right, which can help give more business agility and the better customer experience for our customers. My focus on next few minutes will be basically deep diving around various strategic modernization imperatives and how we see adoption across different industry. There is no one size fit, right? So what is the best fit solution, best fit for purpose solution based on the different architecture type and application type, and how and what type of strategy we need to put in place. We'll also cover along with this how Capgemini, along with Micro Focus, we help our customer choose these strategies. Right, we have some proven methodology, and which help us us basically evaluate and analyze a large set of application and define the right path for modernizing a specific set of application. So some of these strategies which we are going to discuss, definitely it follows the 6R or 7R principle. But when we look from the mainframe perspective, it has its own nuances, and it needs certain specific details, and I will be highlighting those things. Also, I mean, as you look at the slide at the bottom, right, all these strategies, right, we will evaluate and we'll discuss in terms of business value, in terms of time it takes to implement, and the risk associated with it. So ultimately, the intent is to help organizations basically look at their existing application and define the strategy uh, which fits which fits their purpose, and basically start the journey. As you see on the left hand side, right, definitely many of the CXOs, right, they are focused on staying ahead of the curve and picking some of the greenfield option, right, which is basically tied to the new offering, the new market, the new customer. But at the same time, we need to there's a ask, there's a need to basically put analysis around the existing application and basically define the right strategy. So if we deep dive in, you look at it, there are four blocks, right, in the center of this slide, right, which talks about different strategies. Ideally, this is again a six-hour strategy, but group in a way where there are some synergies. Let me start with something which is simple, right, and comes with less risk, but at the same time has lower business value. Retain and optimize. Many of the organizations, they are not yet ready to completely move out of mainframe, but there are ways to optimize the cost, take out some savings, and basically reinvest in the transformation. That's where we come, and tools like Cap 360, which is our code analysis platform, help us identify technical depth, help us identify the data piece of it, which can be moved to cloud for archival and save some easy cost and reinvest in the transformation. So this typically what we have seen for many of our customers, that this result in 10 to 12% of savings with a low investment and a low risk option. The second and third are pretty interesting. And second, for example, if you look at it, has two parts: rehost and replatform. And Dinakar and Stuart will be covering in more detail with a real case study, the replatform part of it. But let's try to understand what it means, right, and how it's different, and where it's applicable. So rehost or lift and shift from distributed system. It for example, Windows, it's pretty simple, right? It has its own, so it's an easier option compared to other. It will not give the exact business value which is required from the cloud perspective, but definitely some of the dev and test type environment can benefit from it. This both option, rehost and replatform, they are pretty much driven by emulator based concept, where for the rehost you again use mainframe hardware and put on a hardware, right, and save some of the mainframe infra cost. The other option here is replatform, which is more widely used, and we have done many implementation around that, where there in with most of our partners, strategic partners, there are tools where you can recompile, and something like Microfocus use an enterprise server, and ultimately you can take that workload to cloud. So any of these options, be it rehost or replatform, right? I mean, though it comes with low risk compared to rewrite or repurpose, but it needs lots of good analysis and we need to look from the workload size, we need to look from the program complexity, we need to look from the data layer, and basically put a strategy on how the code needs to be migrated. Moving to the third option, which is again has two parts in it: refactor and re-architecting the application. This is the most widely and most used method, though it comes with a longer time to implement, but it provides a better business value. And slowly, I mean, this is the progressive modernization approach, where we use something called hollow the core concept, where you slim down the mainframe, extract the business rule, extract the high priority customer journey, and move towards the microservices based architecture. This is around the re-architecture option I'm talking about. The concepts around a domain-driven design helps here. Concept around functional decomposition, knowing what is priority, and how we can create a digital wrapper on top of mainframe, which can help with APIfication, which can help with the target state architecture, which clients they are looking at. This definitely needs time. It needs, again, a good analysis. It needs lots of patience to ensure that we are taking right steps and moving step by steps towards the business objectives set for that. The other aspect around the modernization or around the pattern is refactoring. There are lots of tools available with Capgemini, with the third-party tools, which can help with some of the automated code refactoring. Right? You can, with both options, you are moving your mainframe code to some other technologies like Java, C++, or .NET, right? And you're taking again you're using a container-based approach, and finally you are aligning with your cloud journey. So uh, if you look from the, again, saving, risk, and the business value perspective, this provides lots of good business value. It's the most adopted, most used option with many of our clients. But again, it needs more time, and it needs a good ROI calculation before we initiate that journey. The last one on the slide, if you look at it, right, this is around definitely a rewrite is the option which is not practical, especially in the mainframe world where you have millions of lines of code, and we hardly see that's being used. But repurchase or moving or using SaaS-based solution is more likely and more used, right? More used option. So what we have seen with many organizations, they often pursue this course of action when there's an urgent need. There's a need because of regulatory item, or they have some of the functionality which are pretty standard and can be moved. It, again, I mean, based on the option, it takes longer time. It comes with some cost, but it provides lots of benefit to business in helping meet their customer need. Some of the examples, again, for example, if I look at the financial services, if you look from banking, it may take you years to achieve, right, to the point where you want to be. And you will see the benefit only once you have your data converted, right, and all your users started using the new application. But in some of the cases, I mean, it can be simpler where you're using the industry standard packages, and using the SaaS products or the course product gives you lots of added advantage in enhancing your business. So net, if you look at all these options, right, or the indicators at the bottom, right, the better business value definitely comes with higher cost, and we have our tools, something like ROI analyzer, and the business case framework, which helps you find the best fit for purpose strategy, which can help you align with your business goal and the target state architecture you want to be. With this, I think let me move to the next slide, right, and talk a little bit around, while we talked about the treatment and the execution, uh, why the decommissioning part is important and how do we approach that. So as you see, right, we spend some time talking about how we need to analyze, how we need to enable, how we need to execute different strategies. But it's extremely critical in mainframe world to look at what is your decommission strategy. Capgemini, our Cap 360 demise factory, help us basically define this along with the process, looking at the portability analysis, looking at the sequencing, how you need to basically take each application, reducing the risk and the dependency, how you need to basically work on your data conversion and migrating it and hooking in the new system, rewiring the API, migrating the users, and creating a process to basically release your licenses, release your infra, and basically decommission the application. So this is the 7R of the strategy where the retire and the decommissioning comes, and definitely extremely critical from the mainframe, because one of extremely critical to meet the ROI objective and the business case which has been put by the CIOs of the organization. Moving to the last slide in this section, it depicts the journey of the digital transformation, and the critical part here is that, especially in the mainframe world, you need to spend and plan a good amount of time to analyze and ensure that you have right information to decide this roadmap. That's where Capgemini and our partners like Microfocus, with our tool, we basically start with putting an inventory analysis, doing using our impact analyzer. We look at the different relationship between the application, the database, different field. Then we basically do a due diligence and go through domain driven design to do a reverse engineering and create a backlog for forward engineering team to pick up. In parallel, we also have a team who sets up a very user friendly application which can help them with the decommissioning plan. So, as I said, I mean, definitely this has lots of similarity with some of the other cloud strategy, but mainframe comes with its own challenge, and having some of the tools and accelerators help us reduce the dependency on the skills, which is very limited with many of our clients. Uh, Ability to basically extract the business rule automatically and map it and derive the requirement for forward engineering, and definitely gives you a good plan to decommission your mainframe and move towards your digital journey. uh, I think with this, David, back to you. I think we have another poll coming, and let's see what people have to say. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great presentation, Vineet. I'm going to go ahead and bring up this poll now. I want to call your attention out there, everyone in the audience, to the poll on the screen that says, what, according to you, is a key objective in driving mainframe modernization? So again, we appreciate your feedback on this, and I will share the results of this one with you. So I'll give everyone a moment to respond to this. And again, we appreciate the excellent questions that are coming in. I'm queuing these up for our Q&A session. All right, thank you for the feedback. They're in the poll. Let me go ahead and share the results of the poll now with you. And relatively even split across all four of these. The highest percentage, it looks like, is around compliance and security, followed by application performance and responsiveness. And I'm excited now to bring on Stuart. Stuart, what do you think about these results?
Well, they're certainly interesting. It shows that everyone is unique, and everyone has their unique drivers, and what's important to them and their business is how they're going to drive a project.
Absolutely.
I think that's a fair summary.
Well said.
But let's go on to sort of the next stage, where we're going to go even deeper into modernization strategies. And specifically, we're going to talk about moving to a cloud architected platform. Most of the customers that we talk to today are seriously considering moving complete mainframe workloads to the cloud, potentially moving to a cloud architected platform so that they're using either on-prem or alternative data center strategies as an intermediary step before getting to cloud. So in this presentation, we're going to go really from very high level all the way down to a set of technologies that are used to complete the journey. Just a little bit of information about Microfocus. I'm hoping that many of you will know us for some of our core technologies, but over the years we've certainly acquired a lot of different businesses. For those of you out there, I'm sure you're probably using one of the brand names somewhere on this page. So it's just to sort of outline that application modernization might be the core to Microfocus, but the company in itself is obviously significantly bigger. I think the key question is what's changed in the market. Over the last 3 years, I think we've seen a very significant change. Up until that time, customers still doubted that they could actually seriously move complete mainframes above 15 to 20,000 MIPS to an alternative platform. But over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen customers even up to 400,000 MIPS seriously embarking on this journey with a very defined plan as to achieve that within a 3 to 4 year period. The largest customer that we have in flight today is at 330,000 MIPS, and we're actually talking about one of the top 5 European banks embarking on that journey. Now, they've undertaken that journey for specific reasons, which we'll touch on in a minute, but in the full understanding of the complexity that might be involved. They're spending well over $300 million a year on that mainframe budget. The applications are proprietary, complex, they're tied to the platform and heavily interconnected, which makes it look very, very challenging in terms of driving a project. And of course, the transactional side of the business is completely tied to the performance characteristics of the mainframe. So even with all of these challenges, customers are beginning to make this significant move. And why is that? Well, we touched on that almost at in the first poll, where cost has become critical. And it's certainly true in moving off the mainframe, moving significant workload off the mainframe has an ability to dramatically reduce hardware and software infrastructure spend. Generally speaking, with all of the customers that Microfocus has touched and those that we've touched with CAP, we typically see anything in the order of 80 to 85% reduction in hardware and software operating cost in that move. And that's really the big incentive. As Vineet was touching on, this allows a considerable amount of funds to be freed up, to be then reinvested in the ongoing modernization of either the applications or indeed the modernization of the entire business process and the business itself. Even as the journey extends going forward, the likelihood is that costs are going to continually reduce going into the future as the infrastructure in itself is commoditized and the software in itself begins to optimize the technology stack. But this is where most customers today, when they're moving workload off the mainframe, would start. The second component really is actually accelerating value by delivering applications significantly faster. And this is often hidden from view, in that most customers that we would talk to actually would actually say that they've got a quite reasonable, if not optimized, Devops strategy for the mainframe. And yet it's as you can see, it's a uniform experience that in coming off the mainframe, the DevOps process can be dramatically accelerated. And that's because all of the constraints that are tied into the platform and the processes that wrap around those constraints are suddenly removed. And there's far much more freedom, if you like, agility in the broadest sense, to accelerate the applications themselves and the value that they deliver. Similarly, you're removing technology stacks that are siloed, in that you're moving these applications into the mainstream DevOps processes that are used across distributed and cloud-based systems. And that in itself allows best practice to be used across all applications, which further accelerates the delivery of value. To put that into context, well over 1,000 customers have already shut down their mainframes as they're on the move, and in every single vertical market and in every single geography. We've worked heavily with CAP across all of these markets and have specific stories or case studies, customers, references that can relate to how the process has been delivered and the benefits that are involved. For better and worse to some degree, in the understanding the process by which this is delivered, every customer learns more about that as they start their own journey and require a lot of, shall we say, hand-holding to ensure that they really understand the operating practice when these applications land on the new platform. But literally every single use case that you can imagine we've probably already moved these types of applications in terms of the portfolio, in terms of the vertical market, and in terms of the business process. Typically, our objectives are to immediately move to a cloud-based DevOps process. Obviously, when we're moving applications off the mainframe, then by definition, it's best if all of the tools and the tool chains are already existing off the mainframe. This can be done within the customer. If, for example, it's of a very significant size, and therefore the workload is going to take 2 to 3 years to actually move off, then of course there's an awful lot of DevOps processes that are continuing to support the business to continue to improve the user experience through that time period. So this is a fundamental to both gain early benefit, to get early access to the supported platform that's going to support the business going forward, and indeed operates as a foundation to then deliver all of the applications from the mainframe into some form of private public cloud architected platform, including cloud itself. A lot of what we're talking about today is the fundamental benefit of moving 100% of the workload. Now, obviously, my colleagues at CAP have discussed looking at the mainframe portfolio itself and making sure that it's only the applications that really need to be retained are going to embark on this move. But the significant benefit is gained when actually 100% of the workload that is going to be retained is actually moved off the mainframe. When you embark on a partial workload move or migration, then you see widely differing results in terms of the benefit delivered and the techniques that are going to be used to actually ensure that delivery is successful. Using these techniques, at least in terms of moving all the mainframe off, the mainframe workload off, then we see a variety of commercial strategies that also work, that have been successful inside customers. Certainly in terms of end result, the likelihood is that the complete OpEx, including all the staffing, support costs, etc., is likely to be 50% of today's cost on project exit. Hence, building a return on investment is usually fairly simple, at least conceptually. It's then managing the timing of a project and whether that project needs to be self-funded by the savings that are going to be delivered throughout it, or whether there's an upfront investment. Whatever strategies are used, we've built a modernization maturity model that kind of explains the choices that can be made. Most customers consider modernization as a journey that talks about infrastructure, hence moving from mainframe to distributed to the cloud, and then continuing on that journey to take advantage of the cloud platform itself. But each application is going to have to take its own individual journey depending on how far it's going to go. It's moving from a monolithic proprietary based world where transactions realistically haven't significantly changed in probably 20, 30, or even 40 years. And indeed, the application architecture to take advantage of a lot of the capabilities of a cloud platform going forward, that architecture is going to change. Now, there's both a cost benefit to all of those architectural changes. There's normally a desire to move to a cloud native state at some point in the future, but in many of our customers, they don't necessarily fully support all of the applications moving to that state, because quite often the performance characteristics and indeed the cost characteristics aren't quite what they need. However, one thing is uniform. Applications that move to be operating in the cloud and interoperating in the cloud have to be able to play a significant part in the integration of cloud-ready, cloud-optimized, and cloud-native systems. All these components need to fit together. And indeed, there's significant experience now of moving monolithic mainframe applications at least to a cloud-optimized state, leveraging containers, beginning to break up those applications into serious components, then are accessed through a set of APIs by a whole suite of the broader application community. In terms of supporting this process, clearly DevOps needs to lead. In other words, one wouldn't expect to be delivering a cloud-ready application if you're still using a waterfall type process. Most customers are clearly not there, but they're on the mainframe, it's more iterative, hence it tends to be more of a water scrum fall process. But the key element is that the IT and DevOps processes themselves lead the application production platform by at least one generation to make sure that your teams and your people are fully understanding the platform on which the applications are going to sit prior to the move into production. And of course, people are fundamental to this. Within this maturity model, people are right at the center. It's the skills that your teams have. It's the knowledge that's built into the applications. It's that competitive advantage that is so important that it's not lost. So each customer determines its own journey, usually right at the very beginning of the process, which we'll touch on a little bit later. And the breadth of this journey can be either in one single step or in multiple steps. Generally speaking today, certainly for significant workloads, we see a continuous evolution of the modernization journey through these stages, one step at a time, to make sure value is delivered before moving on to the next stage. And to put that into context, I hope this slide will be useful to you, because the time to value is absolutely critical. The most important thing is, for most of our customers, is that they see significant change delivered reasonably early. And that means what can be delivered in terms of a 12 to 18 month time period is very, very important. It builds confidence in the process. It builds confidence that the overall objectives are going to be met. And then it also allows savings to be delivered to the business that can be reinvested in taking these steps forward. So please don't assume that Microfocus is just advocating a replatforming exercise, either with Microfocus or with our partners, or indeed with any other competitive technology or process. Actually, we recommend to customers that they're taking this iterative journey to actually deliver the savings as quickly as possible, and to assume right from the start that some of those funds are going to be reinvested in continuing the modernization journey into the future. Hence, a replatforming to then refactor can deliver significant benefit rather than taking it in one stage at a time. And the larger the mainframe gets, the more the difference in value delivery of these processes is actually accentuated. Hence, if you're running a 200 to 400,000 mainframe portfolio, it's almost certain that a replatforming exercise is a necessity before you embark on any further work in order to generate significant saving. And that's just based on the experience of those 1,000 customers that I was relating to earlier. The process in itself can look complicated, but actually it's relatively straightforward in that it repeats processes over and over again. And as my colleagues at CAP have already indicated, this is typically can be delivered in terms of the factory approach that CAP can take. We discussed rehosting DevOps immediately, which is still understanding the architecture via analysis of the applications that are going to be moved, ensuring that the development processes are already clearly established off the mainframe, that change management and source code management is already mirrored off the platform, so that even if work continues to enhance the applications on the mainframe, that is synchronized with the modernization process. And of course, the testing capacity is readied. Testing capacity is one fundamental benefit of the cloud platform that is often overlooked by many customers. Indeed, today we have customers, development teams of say 100, 120 people that have the equivalent of every individual developer having their own LPAR in order to test against within their DevOps strategy. That means their capacity to test, i.e. their capacity to develop, is significantly higher than it would ever be on the mainframe, which both reduces the risk of such a project, but also means that enhancement process can continue. We move applications to be production ready off the mainframe as quickly as we can. That does mean removing third-party dependencies. There are mainframe components that do not have any functional equivalent in a cloud-based world, and they have to be removed and replaced. We typically remove assembler as part of this process. We can run in production, believe it or not, with EBSTIC-based 370 assembler in the cloud, but it creates all sorts of complications down the line, and therefore it's a heavy recommendation that that's not taken lightly. And the digital decoupling phase is begun. And at that point, applications are now ready to move into the new platform, whether it's distributed or indeed moving to a cloud-ready state. I've already articulated that we believe the modernization journey doesn't stop. Just the objective is not that an existing mainframe application is just delivered onto a new platform and then is probably ignored. I think the intent can sometimes be that these applications are going to be replaced and that a refactoring exercise is going to take out significant third-party components, which is entirely reasonable. But the key element is that these applications still retain the competitive advantage. And indeed, if they're already on the new platform and can take advantage of, for example, all the cloud capabilities, one should kind of consider rewriting or refactoring only where necessary, rather than just as a cosmetic exercise. This continues. Digital decoupling doesn't stop. It continues for delivering into the various container architectures, which can be leveraged almost immediately. It's normally optimizing database utilization to take advantage of the cloud. And of course, eventually, the remaining mainframe code is going to be removed. And hence, you then can then transition the application to a cloud-native state. This is the type of process. My colleagues at CAP and ourselves at Micro Focus have used this process time and time again. There are different diagrammatic forms, but essentially, the critical piece is during assessment and planning, and delivering that as fast as possible. Both of us work together in something we call a rapid assessment, which gives a very good idea of the likely return on investment and the likely duration, and indeed any of the complexities that could be found within a mainframe portfolio before anything is significantly started. That can be a process that may take just a few weeks, but it illustrates and illuminates exactly all of the capabilities and complexities that need to be understood before anything starts. And of course, both the involvement of CAP, Micro Focus, but you as a customer is fundamental to understanding this. The customer knowledge is absolutely vital. The knowledge of how the applications actually work, how they're operationalized on the mainframe is still needed prior to any type of go live. However, the migration process in itself and some of the testing phases can be largely done externally before bringing it back. One of the benefits of replatforming, of course, is if the applications aren't going significant change before they're delivered on the new platform, then the testing side of the equation is relatively straightforward. For user acceptance testing, it's very simple. It may even look exactly the same prior to going down and following another modernization process. The technologies that we use, well, we've already touched on analysis and architecture, and CAP have already illustrated their own tooling that wraps around analysis and architecture to broaden out the assessment and the information that's available. But this is fundamental. We don't anticipate starting a journey in any shape or form before we really have literally a 99% understanding of the portfolio itself, and we've already been able to identify any particular complexities that would give cause for concern, either in terms of the process or indeed the commercial reality. Again, it's in everyone's interests. No one wants to start a project that we can't complete, and no one wants to start a project that doesn't deliver the fundamental benefit that we've committed to. The business in this space is heavily reputation based. Obviously, in order to move, we're moving applications off a mainframe platform that have been secure and have provided the foundation to the business literally for over 30 years. And indeed, it's a testament to the value of the suppliers of that mainframe platform in themselves, that the expectation is that such a project has to be delivered securely and with the same level of reputation. The next phase, as I indicated, is really an Agile but Devops process. This is as implemented, for example, in an AWS cloud, just taking advantage of open source components that can be fully utilized around it. Every customer tends to have their own version, and indeed each cloud provider would also have their own version, whether it's Azure or indeed GCP or Oracle. But here it's illustrated so that the source, from the source all the way through to deployment, can be heavily leveraged and automated using all of the DevOps processes that you know and expect. And therefore, a mainframe application, or a COBOL application indeed, can fit into a set of tooling that the rest of your programmers are probably already using on alternative platforms. And that's where the significant benefit of beginning to remove that isolated platform and silo is fundamentally met. In terms of what does the production platform look like? Well, from Microfocus, it's called Enterprise Server. Here you're beginning to see some of the capabilities that are built into the platform itself. These are the mainframe compatible components. It is an application server as you would expect. It just so happens to support mainframe level of transactions, but indeed also supports distributed platform transactions as well. It's allowing applications, whether they're CICS or IMS, whether they're vSAM or DB2, and all of the various increments, all of the various interfaces and connectivity technologies that have been used in the past, broadly speaking, are able to be moved with as little effort as possible and supported in a cloud-based environment. Interestingly, for most customers, although we never plan for it, performance has never been an issue. And strangely, in many cases, customers actually witness a performance benefit to moving off the frame that's never anticipated up front. However, to be clear, understanding the architecture of applications and understanding the scale-out capabilities of cloud is fundamental to delivering that level of performance, particularly if we're talking about 200 or 300,000 MIPS. So understanding how a system can scale out, how that reliability and security can be implemented is fairly fundamental fairly early on. But as I've said, this is being implemented in AWS, as with other cloud platforms. We're using the scalability of the platform fundamentally to deliver that level of performance and still also leverage the cost benefits of the new cloud platform in itself. So it has all of this. This is delivered in many of the characteristics and processes that you'd come to know and love really on the mainframe. Hence, this is almost like using an LPAR rather than an instance, but that scalability is actually built into Enterprise Server from scratch, and that can be fully utilized, no matter what the performance characteristics of the mainframe application in itself. And similarly, there's significant benefit even in the concepts of batch, because it can be considered architecturally in very different ways, meaning in a highly parallel system, it's possible to break up potentially a batch process so that it can be run in parallel rather than using traditional techniques. And in some instances, that delivers really significant performance benefit in terms of execution time. As we come towards the end of this presentation, as I said, we do not anticipate that applications finish their journey just by having a mainframe application existing in the cloud. That same analysis capability is then used to begin to identify valuable code that can be cut as a code slice or published as an API or delivered as a microservice without significant change. And the tooling is heavily automated by this point. Hence, although moving mainframe applications off the mainframe may take 12 to 18 months, once you're off, the types of development process to deliver ongoing modernization are literally down into the months and potentially weeks. And that's really the benefit of once you're off the platform, that agility, that scalability is available to all. And the applications themselves have moved from where, if you like, the domain knowledge has resided in the mainframe platform, that domain knowledge is moved into the tool chain experience itself, which means new groups of programmers are taking advantage of having access to these code components, whether or not they understand them or not. Hence, you can test and develop the full stack in one location. In terms of looking at that accelerated process, moving from mainframe to cloud, this is the type of journey that we're talking about. We're moving from physical machines in the current mainframe to more of an elastic compute, typically using something like Kubernetes as a container-based world. And that it can be delivered in terms of it being relatively straightforward. And as within that concept of a 12-month journey. Applications are already beginning to change. They may be monolithic and tightly coupled, but as part of this journey, typically you're delivering them on what we would call macro services within a container. Obviously, the data model has moved to a relational model. There are APIs that are already connected those applications together, and you're in a modern stack. The IT processes have moved certainly from a water scrum forward to a truly agile, if not Devops. And indeed, the agility is being delivered instead of through mainframe release cycles, actually consistent with what you would expect from a normal Windows-based application today. As I said, we have customers who've typically moved from delivering, for example, new insurance products 2 or 3 times a year to being able to deliver a new product every 2 or 3 weeks. Now, to be fair, their business didn't demand that of them, but having that capability meant they could easily react to consumer pressures or indeed competition. And to finish, of course, the objective here is to take full advantage of all of the benefits of such a cloud-based platform, particularly as we go into the next generation of machine learning, where data is fundamental but is also being brought in from external sources in order to provide that machine learning environment, and indeed to deliver significant ongoing value to customers. Now with that, I think I can pass back to you, David. Thank you very much.
Excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Stuart. I really appreciate that. We do have a poll question now for everyone out there in the audience. Which of the following initiatives pose a challenge to your company? And again, this is a multi-select question. We want to hear your feedback on this. You could have, of course, multiple challenges, like we talked about before. The options here: creating new APIs, upgrading and modifications to existing integrations, finding staff that can work with existing applications, or it could be just internal attitudes towards mainframe integration. Simply the idea of, we're never going to make any changes. We don't want to move forward, kind of thing. So welcome your feedback on this poll, and I will share the results here with you in just a moment. In fact, let me go ahead and bring on Dinakar. Dinakar, good to have you back. I'm interested to hear your feedback on this poll as well as we wrap up and then move into Q&A. Thank you everyone out there for the responses. Let me share the results on this one. And it looks like 59% said their biggest challenge is simply around upgrade and modification to existing integrations. What's your take there?
Sure. I think I can talk about this along with a case study, what I'm going to talk about, which we had done very recently. We got that 59% of the things which talks about how do I manage my existing application, how do I upgrade. So what kind of change management we need to encounter? That's one point. Second, what Stuart talked about and hammered on the topic, the time to value is very critical. So this particular customer, we have taken the first step to overcome the fear factor, which we talked about in the first, when we start this discussion. One, this is so huge, this is so critical, this is so built for 30 plus years, no knowledge about it. It is supporting 125 countries, 80 currencies are being handled. Can you modernize it? Can you show some savings first? So that journey we embarked last year, exactly during when COVID also kicked off. And we ended this journey exactly on time, delivered within 10 months, and the application is running on production. This is not the success of Capgemini alone. It is Capgemini, Micro Focus, because it is running on Azure. It is even Microsoft's help, along with the collaboration with the customer also. So all the ecosystem should work together so that we can reap the benefit. We had done this exercise, and we ensured that whatever we wanted to achieve as part of this objective, we had done that. So that's how this engagement was very successful today, and it's a kind of first of its kind. We migrated with the less change management. The support for this application is a little not bigger change, because it is more or less COBOL will be a Microfocus COBOL, but it is not running on mainframes, it's running on Azure. And one more thing which Stuart always talked about was, hey, this is first from monolith to macro services. Yes, this is not at a microservices level, but it is a macro service. 6 different applications have been combined and made it as a single application. So it's a kind of service-oriented architecture, which is right now running on the production. It may be moved to microservices maybe in the next hop, but customer is saving $13 million in the next 5 years. So this provided the kickstart as a self-funded journey. So I'll stop here to take up the questions, because we are coming to end of the hour.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dinakar. We do have a lot of questions coming in from the audience. I'm afraid we don't have a lot of time to respond to those, but let's at least take a few minutes here just to do our best on a couple of questions. First one, there are a couple of questions out here, and feel free to jump in because I'm not sure who these are, best to be answered by. One of them is around when it comes to deciding whether or not we should re-platform or rewrite. What are the biggest decisions or factors around that?
I think it's the inherent value of the application in itself. It's difficult to approximate. By definition, the question is not necessarily focusing at a specific application rather than a portfolio. So usually when we're looking at a portfolio, you're more than likely to use 2 or 3 different approaches. So there'll be some that are re-platformed, some that will move forward to refactoring, others that, for example, in legacy components that have no easy move forward, should have to be rewritten from scratch. There is no choice. So quite often, by looking at the overall portfolio itself, that will give a pretty good guide as to what the likely trajectory is. And then actually the conversation is normally with any customer is the fundamental value and when it needs to be delivered. Timing is everything. Rewriting probably takes the longest amount of time and there's the biggest risk. And hence, by definition, all of us, in this particular session, would probably agree that we prefer to deliver the success and minimize the risks that are included at each of those stages. I'll defer to my colleagues.
True.
No, Stuart, you covered it well, right? So again, sorry, go ahead, Dinakar.
No, I agree with what Stuart said. It's a combination of approaches which gives much more value, reduce the risk, and time to value is critical in the modernization projects.
Great point. Well said. And then another question here, just around getting started. I mean, we've got this application portfolio out there. We're considering, how to modernize it. What do you recommend we do to get started? Is the question.
Yeah, in one of the slides we covered around the impact analyzer, the impact analysis, right? And then the second is the business rules, right? Where does it reside? How easy or difficult is to extract and create a backlog for deciding the approach. So these are the two key things that we typically recommend and do during the discovery analysis phase of the program.
Okay. And then I think this is probably a quick question to answer. Can Capgemini and Microfocus help us to modernize our applications? Do you provide migration support is the question.
Yes,
Definitely.
we would.
That's the easy one.
I thought so.
Yeah,
I
think the key element is that, just relating back to the earlier question, the analysis phase can be relatively quick. That's obviously very important to gain an understanding of what might be involved, and indeed to kind of build a level of confidence that it's worthwhile. And so that's really important, because remember, these applications have been, as I said, running on the mainframe for 30, 40 years. There is a perception that it's impossible to move them off, and hence building that confidence that it actually can be done successfully, and will deliver benefit as quickly as possible is quite fairly key. That's the starting point. And both Cap and Microfocus work together to do that literally within weeks to provide that information.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds like a great place to get started. What seems like an insurmountable, project, you all can very quickly do the analysis and determine, the best approach to move forward, and weigh all the pros and cons, and help these folks out here in the world of IT deal with these mainframes that they are probably struggling, I would think, to support at this point. So I'm afraid that's all the time we have. It's probably a good place to wrap up here. I want to thank Stuart, Dinakar, and Vineet. A really excellent presentation and excellent information today. Thank you for being on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining.
And of course, I want to thank everyone out there for joining us in the audience. For more information, check out the handouts tab there. There is a link to the Microfocus Capgemini website where you can sign up for additional email information. You can download a ton of different resources out there. So make sure that you check that out. And of course, watch for emails in your inbox from the Microfocus Capgemini team for additional information. Reach out directly if you would like to speak with them immediately. And then before we go, I do want to announce the winner of our Amazon $300 gift card. That's going out to Jason Griffenberg from Michigan. Congratulations, Jason Griffenberg from Michigan. And we will reach out to our best question prize winner as well. Thank you for all the questions. We didn't have time to get to all of them today, but we do appreciate those, and we'll do our best to get back to you. And finally, of course, thank you to everyone out there for joining. I hope that you enjoyed the event, and have a great day. See you next time. Bye-bye.